Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei is son of Sparda and Eva? Part 11. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Issei woke up that morning as he looked and saw a very naked Riaz on his right. He then looked to his left and saw a very naked Asia as she was sound asleep. Issei then felt a weight on his chest and saw Ravel there as he looked at this. Well, there's a word for this situation, and that word is score. Issei silently called out as this was the closest he's gotten laid since his trips to the strip clubs in Limbo City. It wasn't long till Riaz, Ravel, and Asia woke up as Hades was in the room sleeping on the floor. "Good morning, Issei," Riaz said as she got up. "Did you sleep okay?" Asia asked as Issei smirked and looked at his body of her. Ravel moved off of him. "Well, I'm still alive and in one piece, yeah, I slept pretty well," Issei said as he smirked at them. "Though after you told us to all sleep here we had to make do with our sleeping arrangements, but as those two got your arms as pillows I got your chest and it was pretty comfortable what with you breathing and all, but your heartbeat is quite loud when you sleep," Ravel said in a very Tsunade action. "So it's not like I enjoyed it, it's just I'm trying to fix my idiot older brother's insult to the Grimory and Sparda households," Ravel said with a huff as Issei chuckled at this. "Oh, I almost forgot we need to get breakfast started, it's already late," Asia called as Riaz was wide-eyed. "Oh right," Riaz called as Ravel got up as well. "We should hurry, there's no telling what Sparda's peerage or Kisk's brood will cook up if we don't hurry," Ravel called as she got off the bed. Riaz used a blanket to cover herself up, while Asia and Ravel used a nightgown they brought in for their clothing, as Issei was wide-eyed a bit. "Don't better not be flirting with my godmother," Issei swore silently as he still gets sick just thinking about it. As the three left, Issei looked and saw Hades yawn before running out the door himself, no doubt to head outside to do his business, as Issei then found himself alone. Riaz and Asia hanging out, and now the innocent pure Asia's sex appeal has gone through the roof, not to mention the fact that Ravel is hanging out with them and is a major Tsunade, which makes her sex appeal better, Issei said as he grabbed his head. "Then perhaps you should not have recruited solely females who catch your eye to your brood brother." Kisk was hurt as Issei yelped in shock as he saw Kisk in his school uniform drinking a cup of coffee as he sat on his desk chair. "What the fuck, Kisk, I thought we agreed not to enter each other's rooms," Issei yelled, grabbing Ebony and Ivory to point it at them. "Yes, the silent agreement was made, but as you can see I did not enter here without a purpose and I did come here unarmed," Kisk said as he sat there. "Cat informed me of what Riaz Knight Kiba intends to do with Caliburn, and I must say that if he does attempt it, I will kill him myself," Kisk said as he drank his black coffee. "Yeah, I can agree with you there," Issei said, putting his guns down. "But seriously, don't we need as many female Nephilim as we can get to rebuild the Nephilim faction?" Issei asked as Kisk sighed. "Normally yes, but we do also need a few males among us, so you and I don't end up the soul atoms to a revived Nephilim faction," Kisk said as he put his cup down. "Hence why I had recruited Donasik, Arthur, and Biku into my brood. They have the power needed and will prove to be useful in the long run," Kisk said as he looked. "Plus you only still are at a disadvantage with your brood, thus I doubt you'll be able to partake in a raiding game anytime soon," Kisk taunted as he already had the rear shards and now just needs his 2 sets of versatile shards. "Hey, just you wait, I'll kick your ass 10 ways till Monday first chance I get," Issei said as Kisk scoffed as he got up and exited the room. "Come and try, Issei," Kisk said as he left the room. "Asshole," Issei cursed as his brother left the room. "Issei, sorry to interrupt your brooding and pouting, but we need to talk," Drake said as Issei looked at his arm. "Yo Drake, what's up?" Issei asked as Drake sighed. "Are you sure we should be in the household? The White One is staying and we are conflicting forces, so the longer we stay here, the more likely we'll put everyone in danger," Drake said as Issei looked. "Why ask now? Albion has been inside my brother since he was born, the same with you and me, so why bring this up now?" Issei asked as he looked to his partner. "When you were infants, mere hatchlings, you had no strength or thoughts to even utilize our power, and even after you didn't awaken me till after your mother's death. The fact you two awoken us the same time is more than enough proof that your mother's death was a key factor. Though in a perfect world you two would have gone your entire lives without awakening us," Drake said as he then chuckled. "Though I will not forcibly attack him through you, I owe Sparda that much, and Albion is probably the same with Eva, but be warned, there will come a time where you two do battle like those who came before," Drake said as Issei smirked. "That I've been wanting to punch that asshole in the face," Issei said as he had been itching for that. "But you may die from it, so if anything I suggest you try and wait it out till your brood is in a sufficient state to gain their own shards, that way we don't risk stray Nephilim, and you may want to leave some seeds behind, that way we will be prepared for it," Drake said as Issei smirked. "Way ahead of you," Issei said as he already had mental images of how to get his harem. "Yes, but the fact that Albion is mere rooms away from us makes me nervous as to what could happen when you sleep. I couldn't sleep after those thoughts, not like I need much of it," Drake said as the fact the White Dragon Emperor was in the same household as them made this Welsh dragon unnerved and worried. Hey, I'll be a harem king remember, plus being a son of Sparta put some points on my side there. Issei said as Drake chuckled. Just like Sparta cocky with good reason to be. Drake chuckled at this glad to see the master of his previous partner doing so well. Scene break Kuo Academy. Soma and her queen were walking through the school, while Soma was reading a book before she all of a sudden closed the book as she looked and saw the cloaked figure. She already knew they were from the Vatican, but she also saw one of them had a holy sword as she glared. A holy sword. She said as the two cloaked figures were Irina and Zenobia. Inside the main building, this is so unfair yo. Motohama said as he glared at Kisk who was surrounded by ladies. Yeah, how can you be related to that man came the glasses wearing pervert as he saw the two. You do know the number of ladies I get by just riding my motorcycle to school right? Issei asked as the two glared. We need a plan to get those ladies, tell me he can be bribed into sharing. Motohama begged as Issei looked. Nope, and whatever weaknesses he may have he keeps them under lock and key. Issei said as Kisk who was simply reading a book was surrounded by girls wanting to get in on his reading. Trust me I've been looking for that and so far zilch nada. Aika said as the two were surprised. Wait so you're saying that guy is unbeatable? Motohama called as Issei laughed. Nah, if anyone can beat him with brute force that would be me. Issei said as he smirked. Yeah, but I've also heard a rumor that new teacher Calawerner sensei is Kisk's fiancé. Motohama called as Issei laughed. Yeah, he's not that easily caught, trust me the guy is as stiff as a cinder block. Issei said as he laughed. In fact I bet you he's not even looking for a relationship, seeing them as a waste of time. Issei said as the two were shocked at this. He has girls surrounding him and he doesn't even bat an eye. The two nerds called as they looked to Issei. How can he be your twin brother? They all but yelled to the heavens as this was a tragedy, no an insult to men and bros everywhere. We should go Karayak then to at least get you guys to get better, I bet Asia would love to come along right? Aika said as Asia walked up to them. Karayak I'd love to. Asia said as Issei had a flashback to the first time he went Karayak that he was even humming some of his favorite American songs. Scene break that afternoon old school building. Issei, Murayama, Asia, Aika and Caddis walked into the building as Caddis was holding some papers she got from Roden. Well it's official Kiba is off doing something stupid. Issei said as he was in his gear and sat down on the sofa that was no his seat since it was starting to get ass print on it. Geez Issei straight to business huh? You couldn't even comment on the placing getting refurbished and all that. Ria said as Issei waved her off. Now you seen one shiny as hell floor you've seen them all. Issei said as he did enjoy the fact the shiny floors allowed him to look up the ladies' skirts, but he didn't voice that. Kuroko. Kaneko said as her elder sister a former stray devil was now part of Issei's brood. Look Kaneko I get you hate your sister's guts, but right now we got a bigger problem to worry about and that's Kiba and his hunt for Caliburn. Issei said as his mother's sword was possibly being used for evil intent. I understand. Kaneko said simply as she knew with Caliburn out there Kiba was walking a suicide path. Luckily though we got some backup on the way. Issei said as he took out a dart and threw it at a dartboard behind Ria's as she was surprised that was there. Issei you better not turn this into another man cave for you. Ria said as Issei laughed. Hey the office building is more than enough man cave for me. Issei said as he didn't have to worry about his godmother pestering him to clean it. Besides cleaning up after my dad is one thing since he has a lot of shit I need to clean up, but cleaning up after my mom is a whole different story. Issei said as he leaned back on his chair. The fact is I try to clean up and when I finish some idiot angel or priest wants my mom's power and will make a mess of things again. Issei said as he sighed. Sometimes I wonder why you even bother Issei. Murayama said as she knew he loved his mother, but he kept cleaning up a mess Eva didn't even make. Just who I am I guess. Issei said as he looked at the ceiling. Plus Ria's Issei began as Ria's looked. The reason you made Kiba a devil was because he survived the Holy Sword project if just barely, and because of his sword birth and ability to utilize a holy sword, he was too valuable to allow to die. Issei said as he looked at Ria's who looked kind of guilty for it. I like your one to talk Issei. Ria said jokingly as Issei looked. Difference is the people I turned didn't deserve to die or had asked me willingly and I knew them personally. Issei said as the brood members here were under the first part. People around me tend to get hurt a lot simply because of who I am or what I am and no matter where I go Paradiso, Inferno, Chaos, or hell even Limbo and Purgatory, I'm basically walking towards enemies left and right. Issei said remembering how it was growing up after Eva had died. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Ria said as she couldn't possibly picture what Issei had went through because she knew she never experienced something like that. The fact that angels won't breed unless they become fallen angels is proof that him and Kisk were simply just lucky to be born considering Sparda and Eva's backgrounds. Soon the door opened and inside came Akeno as she smiled. Oh Akeno you're late what's up? Issei asked as he saw Akeno walk in. Well, since everyone is here, I figured I may as well get down to it. I was helping some friends get here. Akeno said as Issei looked and saw Sona and her queen walk in. Okay, so Citri king and queen and our student body president and vice president, what's up? Issei asked as he looked to the two. They said they had something urgent to talk about. Sona said as Issei smirked. Let me guess, 2 Vatican cloaked people are in Kuo town and one of them is a holy sword user, right? Issei asked as he looked to Sona, who didn't show it but was surprised by this, as everyone there was surprised. Wait, how did you know? Sona said before Issei pulled out a letter from the Vatican, but it may have the Vatican design, but on it was the mark of Eva. Let's just say one of those 2 lovely ladies is a friend. Issei said with a smirk as Sona looked. A friend? Sona asked as she had one thought. Nephilim. Sona thought as she should have known Issei had another brood member when he mentioned her on a top secret assignment. Anyway, what do they want? Issei asked as he smiled at Sona. I guess you already know what they want, don't you? Sona said as she looked. Oh, you know me too well. Issei said as he then laughed. Kind of creepy you stalking me, Sona. Issei teased as Sona kept her cold look. Issei. Sona said in a threatening tone as Issei laughed. I'm just fucking with you, I know what they want to talk to me, and Ria's right. Issei asked as Ria's looked to Issei. Yes, I told them where to find you, but if one of them is with you then I suppose she already knows where you are. Sona said as Issei smirked. Beep. Issei said as he got up. Are you sure you can trust them, Issei? The only reason the church would be in Kuo town is to stir up trouble. Ria's asked as Issei smirked at this. Don't worry, Irina wouldn't do that unless it's to help with her cover. Issei said as he stretched a bit. But be careful, they were carrying holy swords. Sona warned as Issei smirked. Don't worry, one of them Rodin got for her, the other well not so much. Issei said as was ready to head out. Anyway, I have to go, I do have a date to keep. Issei said as he left the room. Later with Issei at the gates of hell. Insert Bayonetta Ost. Gates of hell. Issei entered Rodin's bar, and not even 5 seconds and he already caught the feel of a familiar aura. Issei smirked as he saw a cloaked figure at her own booth enjoying a beverage as Issei smirked. Rodin was at the bar washing a glass as he had let the cloaked girl in and knew she was clean. Issei walked to the booth and sat in the booth behind her as he then smirked and ordered his regular strawberry sundae. You know, a lot of murders have been happening here. The girl began as Issei had his eyes closed waiting for his sundae. Yeah, a lot of them involving religious nut jobs who have the word heretics and crap riding around. Issei said as he was talking about Fried's victims. Yeah, though they claim the deaths were caused by a bladed weapon, more than likely a sword, but the metal is unknown to them. The girl said as Issei smirked. Then to this. Issei began as his sundae arrived and he took a spoonful. I say, my honored brethren. Issei began as the girl smirked. We come together. She continued as Issei knew this poem. Unite as one. Issei continued as the girl knew this piece very well. Against those that are damned. She said as her hand moved to her drink, revealing her katana weapon and her Nephilim shard bracelet. We show no mercy. Issei said as the girl had taken a sip of her drink. For we have none. The girl said as Issei ate his sundae. Our enemies shall fall. Issei said as even Rodin was listening while Enzo was passed out on his seat, but soon they had the system going between them. As we uprise. Proclaim our fate. Now and forever. The girl said as it hit the climax. We'll be together in love and in hate. They both said at the same time as their orders were done with. The cloaked girl soon stood up and sat across from Issei in his booth, removing her hood to reveal Irina. It's been a while, Issei. Irina said as Issei smirked. Yeah, last time we saw each other was at the airport in Limbo City after we got Murayama and Cadis adjusted to living as Nephilim. Issei said as that was the day they went their separate ways for the hunt for Caliburn. Yeah, Limbo City, fun times there, especially when the city was a fucking hive for stray devils. Irina said as that was one hell of a job which nearly disrupted the entire Trinity when some fucked up devil wanted to have Limbo and Chaos collide. Yeah, good times. Issei joked as the two looked at each other. So Irina, what's the information you got? Issei asked as Irina looked. Caliburn is in Kuo City, don't know exactly where as of yet, but I do know that the Excalibur cores can possibly lead us to it since they were copied from Caliburn. Irina said as she pulled out notes and photos as well as a flash drive. Also did some scouting on the Church of Jubilees, and let me just say that the Vatican had cut off connections with them. Whatever their leader was doing, they didn't want to be connected or tied to it. Irina said as Issei looked it over. Any ideas on who the leader is? Issei looked as Irina turned her head. None. Whoever this guy is, he likes to keep to himself and keep his privacy. Irina said as she looked worried. But whoever he is, it seems the stray angels congregate to him like moths to a flame, and from the looks of it his followers and crap are congregating at his company's building. Like they're getting ready for something big. Irina said as Issei looked. So we got a major problem in the Trinity coming up. Issei said as he knew whatever this mysterious Pope Wanab is planning, it's not good. You don't think he's after the eyes of the world, is he? Irina asked as Issei did consider that possibility. No clue, even then the right eye has been missing since the Great War, so we don't have anything to point us to the possibility of getting the eyes. Issei said as Irina nodded. Okay then. Irina said as she smiled a bit and got up. Well, it was great catching up with you, Issei. Make sure the new girls know that I'll be around tomorrow to meet them officially, alright? Irina said as Issei nodded. Yeah, I got it. Issei said he too got up. Also remember, if my partner is around, just act like we are childhood friends, because so far I was able to trick her into thinking I was human. Irina said as she looked. I like to keep it that way for as long as I can. Irina said as she knew if Zenobia finds out before they can take back Caliburn, it will cause her to take the sword herself and return it to the Vatican. That would in turn cause the Nephilim to go full-on frontal assault to take back the sword, because when they find out that Irina had been a spy for years already, then they can kiss Caliburn goodbye. Got it, Irina? Issei said, knowing that was obvious enough. But just so you know, Murayama and Caddis talk about you all the time with the others, so they are very excited to meet you. Issei said as Irina smirked and gave a wink. Then I better not disappoint. Irina said as the two then left the bar, no doubt to carry on their individual business. Roden now was smoking a cigar as he smirked at the two Nephilim, as his red eyes glowed. Beautiful. Roden said as he saw the two exit the bar. And Ost, with Kisk and his brood. Damn it. Kat cursed as she was training with the other Nephilim, as Kisk stayed out of it. Pat, focus, you're a medium and a psychic, you need to utilize that power and utilize astral projection to its fullest capability. Kisk said from his spot above the others as he looked to them with his cold calculative look. I'm trying, this isn't easy, you know, I'm used to having my ingredients pre-prepared and having a sketch pad to do it. She called as Raynor sighed. Kisk, don't you think it would be better for her to learn under Roden and have different sketch pads and spray paint cans for each ritual? Raynor called as Kisk sighed. Don't worry, I already thought of that. Roden accepted my payment of halos and red orbs. Right now he's working on proper equipment for you, Catherine, so for now we need to get your astral projection mastered so you don't have to be tortured to use it. Kisk said his cat was pretty bruised and bloody right now, but nothing a Vitality Star can't fix. Pine got on with it. Kat said as after she spit out some blood. Kisk, perhaps you should go easy on her, she is only human with no prior combat experience. Albion suggested as Kisk glared. No, that is exactly why I need to be hard on her. Might controls everything and without power you can't protect anything, let alone yourself. I recruited her because of her rare trait as a Wiccan, and finding any of those with mastery of their power would be impossible, so I took what I can get. Kisk explained as he could hear Albion just fine. If I wish to revive the Nephilim to their former glory, then I need to have powerful Nephilim in my brood, so when they are able to ascend to ultimate class Nephilim, then they can take the leadership of the 9 levels of Yggdrasil, and those who achieve high class shall begin the requirement of building their noble house. Kisk said as Albion looked. Oh, what of you, Kisk? Albion said as Kisk looked. I intend to lead the Nephilim myself, with or without Issei. Kisk said, knowing to do so he must find the right Eve of the Overseer. Very well, I am willing to wait till our inevitable confrontation with the Red Welsh Dragon, till the Nephilim are at a proper state of power. But be warned, Kisk, my patience can only go so far, as you undoubtedly understand. Albion said as Kisk looked. I know. Kisk said as he watched the training take place. Scene break the next day, old school building. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us today. The blue-green-haired girl said as Issei checked her out. That too much like Kisk for my tastes. Issei thought as he had a smirk. Next. He mentally called out as he could hear Drake snicker. My name is Zenobia. Zenobia introduced herself as Irina smiled. And I'm sure Issei here already told you all who I am, but I'm Irina Hyoudou. Irina said as Issei smirked. Yeah, and then some. Issei said as he knew Irina's assignment was about to come to an end. Issei sat next to Riaz as Issei's brood stood on one side, while Riaz's peerage stood on the other side. It's fascinating to me to why followers of God would want to meet with a devil. Riaz asked as Issei smirked. Yeah, especially when my mom and Albion offed God. Issei mentally added as he smirked. It does seem random if we were talking a devil. Irina said as Issei laughed. Ah, she got us figured out. Issei cried out as he clapped his hands in amusement as Riaz held back her shock. Yes, we found Issei's aura here to be quite odd when I visited his home and met his brother as well as his brood. So I am to assume you as well as the ladies on Issei's side are Nephilim of Issei's brood. Zenobia said as she looked to them. So what if we are? Riaz asked threateningly as Zenobia looked. It was to my knowledge the Nephilim were wiped out by you devils and fallen angels because of their power to wipe them off the face of the earth. The only way a Nephilim is born from my understanding is for a devil and a fallen angel to procreate with each other to birth, said living longinus, or for an offspring of human and fallen angel to accept and give into darkness. Zenobia said as she looked at them. Yeah, you're right, but my bro and I were born from a fallen angel mother and a devil father. Issei said as he smirked at them. Any guesses who they were? Issei taunted as Zenobia looked. That is what I wish to learn before we continue. Zenobia said as Issei sighed. My parents were Sparda and Eva. Bet you guys at the Vatican heard of them in some way or form. Issei said as Zenobia nodded. Yes, Sparda, who rebelled against Hell and the great Satans before he began a devil civil war in Hell, which ended with Ms. Grimmery's brother as the new leader. Zenobia said as she saw the rebellion with him. So it's to assume that sword you have there is the rebellion, one of the 3 swords Sparda once wielded. Zenobia said as Issei nodded. Yeah, it is thought it was given to me as part of the inheritance. Issei said as Zenobia nodded, seeing nor sensing any lies from Issei. Zenobia was about to mention the other part involving Eva's relationship with Sparda and the Vatican's eyes, but Irina stopped her, knowing being on a Nephilim's bad side will be the last thing you want to do, because it will be the last thing that you will do before dying. Very well, then we shall continue with our business here. Zenobia said as Issei sighed. Yeah, wait, much like Kisk, Riaz can have her, I don't want that girl here. Issei thought as he'd rather Riaz have her than Kisk. Okay, see, here's the thing, there are 6 holy swords we can account for. Irina began as Issei scoffed at that, no doubt not liking those knockoffs being called holy. 3 of them are still with the church, but we happen to know the other 3 were stolen by fallen angels. Irina said as Issei smirked, knowing the fallen angels just basically painted a large beacon onto them if the 2 swords they have are what he thinks they are. Plus the sword Caliburn was taken by them to a sword we had acquired a few years back in hopes it would lead us to Excalibur's new wielder. Zenobia said as Issei scoffed at that. Okay, so how does this involve us? Issei asked, trying to make sure Zenobia doesn't find out the truth of Caliburn and its secret. These are from the ones we have left. Zenobia began as she pulled the wrapped sword. They're made from Excalibur, this weapon is mine, it's called the Sword of Destruction. Zenobia said as Irina quickly switched to her angelic power and pulled out her own sword. And this is my sword right here, the Holy Sword O Mimicry, the Excalibur Mimic. Irina said, lying through her teeth, as its real name was simply Mimic, forged from the angel known as Mimic, the Angel of Truth, who had gone stray years before in Limbo City. So let me guess, you want to bring in some professionals with the fallen angels here and take the sword back, right? Issei asked as Zenobia glared. No, far from it, we want you to stay out of it. Zenobia said as Issei smirked. Oh, we got a tough girl here. Well, Zenobia, here we do things differently. Issei began as he looked. Last I checked, the devil hunters of your Vatican pretty much worship Sparda as the first devil hunter, so as far as I'm concerned in the chain of command as his son, I say we will be involved. Issei glared as Zenobia glared. I heard of you, Issei, you tend to collect the souls of defeated devils and angels to make part of your arsenal. Though I condone the devils and the angels who had fallen, the fact you never follow how the Vatican works is the reason why they do not wish to work with your kind. Your brother was a major thorn as well when he sought your father's power, and Sister Quattro could not rein in on him. Zenobia said as Issei glared. So as far as I'm concerned, this is between us and the fallen angels. Zenobia said as Issei glared. Yeah, says the guys who let 3 of their holy swords get snatched up. Issei said as Zenobia hated that jab because it was true. Like you could have defended it any better. Zenobia said as Irina was wide-eyed, knowing that Issei had buried Caliburn in his mother's grave. Shit, Issei is pissed. Aika cursed as she saw Issei's eyes glow red. Besides, we don't need the devils of this town to intervene, since I see you have 2 former devil household members in your brood, so if you got involved being part of the Sparda household, that would increase the chances of devils getting involved. Zenobia said as Issei glared. Yeah, they don't get involved with me. They pretty much know it's a suicide run for them when it comes to my line of work. Issei glared as he looked. Plus, if any devils decide to join up with the fallen angels' cause of that holy sword thing, they're getting swords and bullets in them before I bring their carcass back to hell. Issei said with a glare as Riaz saw the negotiation here had turned from hers to Issei's. We know for devils a holy sword is an instant death, but for Nephilim it barely even tickles them, and it doesn't even weaken their devil halves, so we don't need the Nephilim getting more power than it already has. Zenobia said as Issei was getting pissed off fast. The Nephilim were always the neutral party, but they can't help but take pleasure in having more powerful devil arms and angel arms to their arsenal, and holy swords are one of those that really tickle their fancy. Zenobia said as Issei glared. Well, you're right, I do want the holy sword, but not the ones you have, it's Caliburn I'm more concerned about. Issei said as Zenobia was surprised by that. Let's just say Caliburn and how you all acquired it is the main reason me and Kisk don't like working with the Vatican. Issei said as he glared at the priests. So want to try taking us on then, Zenobia? Issei dared as he knew they don't have the power even with their holy swords to defeat them, as that actually made Zenobia back down. Now here's how things will work, Zenobia, I will try and offer my assistance, but we do it my way, so no Vatican or any of that shit unless it's needed. Issei said as he glared. And also I have score to settle with one of those black-feathered bastards, so if you find him he's mine. Issei glared as Zenobia glared. Very well, but don't expect us to call you for help. Zenobia said as Issei smirked. Don't worry, you won't have to, I got eyes and ears all over town. Issei said as those eyes and ears were the familiars, Sparda's peerage, Eva's saints, and Rodin. Then if we fail to prevail it is on your head. Zenobia threatened as Irina's eyes had all but said I'm sorry. As she was still deep undercover. Well then we've held up enough of your time, we will take our leave. Zenobia said as Issei looked. Don't worry, I'm sure you know your way out. Issei said as he didn't want to deal with this bitch any longer. As Zenobia left she stopped for a moment and looked at Asia as she noticed the Nephilim shard on her. I was wondering if finding the home of Issei would lead us to you, but it also lead us to Kisk. I should have at least expect a witch would have joined a Nephilim son of Sparda, Asia Argento. Zenobia said as Asia looked guilty for that as Issei just about had it and took out ebony and ivory and was now pointing it at Zenobia's head. Say one more word, I fucking dare you. Issei said as he was getting sick of the Vatican and their shit. All I said was the truth. Witches will make contracts with only the strongest devils for power. Zenobia said as Issei was getting pissed as it was causing Asia to have a panic attack. Zenobia, that's enough. Irina said as Asia was a Nephilim of Issei's brood and she would be damned if Issei's brood got harassed by her friend. Tell me Asia, do you still believe in our god Asia? Zenobia asked as Issei smirked. Of course she does, bitch, the best part about being a Nephilim is that we can read and pray to God as much as we want. Issei smirked as Zenobia glared. But our god said your kind was to be exterminated. Zenobia said as Issei glared. Yeah, a god who had all Nephilim wiped out, down to the very last child. Issei glared as he was about at his limit for his temper as that made Asia wide-eyed. If that god called for the genocide of an entire race simply for doing what they did to keep the Trinity and stop the war from hurting those in the crossfire, then I will never worship a tyrannical god like that. Issei glared as Asia was wide-eyed. So says the bastard son of a slave. Zenobia said as Issei was wide-eyed. What did you say? Issei said with a glare as everyone was wide-eyed at this. Didn't your mother ever tell you what the church thought of her after her betrayal against God in heaven? Or maybe she didn't tell you because it was truth. Zenobia asked as Issei glared. What did the church say about Eva? Asia asked, scared of what she may learn. Sparda was a hero to our church, a devil who awoken to justice and to God's light that God named him his Dark Knight. He was sent to hunt down Eva and bring her to justice for her crimes against the Heavenly Father. Sparda found her and gave the fallen angel her punishment, eternity of servitude to Sparda himself. A fitting punishment for the dark angel Eva. Zenobia said as Issei just about had it. Zenobia. Issei began as his voice was flat and cold as Zenobia felt a chill go down her spine. Asia had her hand to her mouth in shock that the church had thought of Eva like that. It was hypercritical of how they worship Sparda, a devil, as a hero, and tarnished the love Sparda had for Eva by making it basically that of a master punishing a slave. Riaz was about ready to attack herself, but it took all her will not to do so. Ika felt her dragon roaring out in her as she shared his sentiment because a Nephilim, especially a child of Sparda and Eva, was an ally to all dragons, and that insult was like attacking their nest. Murayama and Cadis were of similar thoughts as their hands twitched to grab their weapons and go ham on Zenobia. So whatever Issei is about to do, the Nephilim and the devils in the room fully supported. There are just some lines you don't cross. Issei continued as Zenobia was now wide-eyed as she realized what this meant. That was one of them. Issei roared before he fired ebony and ivory at Zenobia, causing her to duck and cover from it as she avoided the attack and caused Issei to punch bullets holes into the wall. Issei, that's enough. Kiba's voice was heard as Issei looked and saw Kiba. Don't run in recklessly against her. Kiba said as he looked. She had the goal to insult our mother, so brother she will feel the full sting of our power. Came another voice as Kisk walked in himself as he glared. I had heard everything, and the fact she had such gall to call our mother a slave whore to our father is an insult to both of them. Kisk said as he pulled out Yamato just a tad bit. So I guess it's going to be 3-on-2 then, huh? Issei asked as he looked at the two. Of course that is a dishonor right there. Zenobia said as Kiba looked. No, I won't fight unless I actually have to. Kiba said. But since you made such a massive insult to these two, they'll be your opponents. Kiba said as Zenobia glared. So I'll be fighting the sons of Eva, huh? This should be fun then. Zenobia said as she looked. Scene break outside. Issei and Kisk stood side by side as Kisk had Yamato in his hand ready to draw as Issei had ebony and ivory out. So we shall call this a drill then, since you never faced two Nephilim. I'm sure your church would like so much info on how to kill our kind. Kisk said, showing he wasn't going to let them get such information. Yes, I suppose it is a drill, so no killing then. Zenobia said, revealing her Excalibur sword. Kisk then laughed at the sword, but his came off as arrogant but also displeased as he looked. Looks like fate has put a weapon I had desired to face against me. Kisk said as Zenobia was confused. And how is that funny? Zenobia asked as Kisk glared. Because I get to destroy the insult to my mother's great and illustrious legacy, that counterfeit of her sword. Kisk said as he drew Yamato. That very counterfeit you now wield as a failed attempt to recreate the true Excalibur, the sword wielded by my mother herself. Kisk said as he glared at Zenobia. You lie, the sword was wielded by King Arthur himself, there is no way Eva was its true master. Zenobia said as she would not buy any of Kisk's falsified lies. It is true, Arthur and the Fey Pendragon, King Arthur's direct descendants, confirmed it for me. Eva took the role of the Lady of the Lake to loan her sword to Arthur, but Arthur abused its power after he completed its task, causing my mother to take back her sword. Kisk glared as he would not lie of such a thing. But it does not concern me if you believe me or not, the point of the matter is, I will take great pleasure in destroying that false Excalibur. Kisk said as he glared at Zenobia. And have at you. Zenobia said, being annoyed with Kisk's lack of interest. Divide. Albion was heard as the blast sent by Zenobia was cut in half before Kisk used Yamato and cut through it as the vanishing dragon's wings appeared behind him. Divine dividing, so you are the White Dragon Emperor. Zenobia called as she was shocked by this. Yes, and now you shall feel my power and the sting of a blade wielded by a Nephilim son of Eva. Kisk said as he was ready to attack. But Issei versus Arena. Issei and Arena clashed swords as the two talked during their struggle. So fake it and make this look convincing. Issei whispered as Arena nodded. Of course. Arena answered back before the separated. Back with Kisk versus Zenobia and Sir Devil May Cry 3 Divine Hate. Zenobia tried for the frontal assault, but Kisk didn't even move. Instead he simply pulled Yamato out by a mere inch before slamming it back in. To Zenobia's shock, she felt thousands of slashes upon her body as she only saw it for a second of Kisk drawing Yamato. That was my judgment cut, be grateful to your god that I did not use its stronger version. Kisk said as Zenobia roared and charged at Kisk but tried for a different approach. Kisk had calculated her movement, and by the pre-movements one's body does, he was able to properly tell what she was about to do. Kisk smirked before he avoided her attack from the side and then countered with his Yamato combo A, as unlike Issei, who likes to give his skills and moves fancy names, Kisk only gave the more noteworthy skills the names they deserve, such as his judgment cut. Kisk showed he was in control of this battle, as he didn't even receive a single scratch upon his body. His speed was far superior in this field that even Kiba couldn't keep up. Kisk then went to his angelic powers and utilized his Yamato combo B as Zenobia was knocked back. But when Kisk sheathed his sword fully at the end of his combo, she felt another slash go up her torso as she saw her blood was staining her clothing and the ground. Impossible. Zenobia cursed before she roared and charged forward. Kisk smirked and switched to his devil powers, which gave him a strength advantage in exchange for his speed, and with that power, he easily caught the Excalibur in his hand, showing he wasn't afflicted by it. Foolishness. Kisk began as he looked. Simply foolishness of a priest. Kisk said before he pushed the blade off and kicked Zenobia in the gut hard, sending her flying. But the brute and peerage, those two don't stand a chance. Rhea said as she saw this. I know, if anyone has a right as much as I do to destroy all Excaliburs if not more, then it's those two. Kiba said as this revenge was theirs as well. Yeah, as Nephilim they're impervious to their holy sword's power and clearly Arena and Issei are faking their battle as all hell. Akeno said as she saw Issei and Arena fake it. Of course Arena senpai would never harm Issei even if he ordered it. Kata said as Murayama smirked. Yeah, Arena senpai would slap him around for some of his reckless shit, but other than that, noting major. Murayama said with a smirk as she saw the fight happen. Yeah, plus she helped him develop his dress break attack for the simple use of nullifying an opponent without serious injury. Kata said as Riaz felt oddly intimidated by Arena as Arena was the first ever member of Issei's brood and the way these two talked about her made her feel out of place. Asia, Ravel, and Aika were also intimidated as she had as much experience as Issei and is most likely the closest to him. They felt intimidated and sacred she can steal away Issei at a moment's notice and he wouldn't stop her. But Kisk versus Zenobia. Zenobia wasn't doing so well with her fight as Kisk blocked and parried all her strikes and treated them like they were annoyances to him. Like a mosquito who won't take a hint and go away after so many attempt to squash it. Kisk then pushed Arena away before he sighed and reached into his pocket. I suppose since the Nat won't be able to show much of a challenge, I suppose I should catch up on my reading. Kisk said before, to everyone's shock, he pulled out the novel Dante's Inferno as Kisk began to read. Zenobia was now pissed at the fact Kisk won't even take her seriously before she roared out and charged at Kisk. Kisk sighed before he avoided the attack with ease and then launched ethereal swords at her from his reading hand, not even missing his spot. Zenobia had to block the swords as she was in shock with how Kisk didn't even get a scratch on him, as Zenobia then roared as she would not tolerate how Kisk is merely shrugging her off for a book that he should know by heart. This isn't loveless. Kisk said before closing the book. It appears in my hurry I disregarded to see if this was the correct novel. Kisk said before he put the book away. Zenobia then jumped up and pointed her sword downward before Kisk smirked. Divide. 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 Albion invoked as the power Zenobia was charging up was divided and absorbed by Albion and given to Kisk. When the attack hit, it made a crater far smaller than what Zenobia had intended as Kisk sighed. Rule 1: when fighting an opponent, know his strengths and weapons. Rule 2. Never face an opponent you have no hope of defeating. Kisk said before he pulled out Yamato in its sheath before charging at Zenobia and using his combo C, which was a few slash to make Zenobia open, before he began to perform hundreds of cuts upon her, causing her to cry out in pain. Kisk then jumped up and with his demon ethereal sword, brought Zenobia high, before using his aerial combo, A following it up with his aerial combo B. Kisk then threw her to the ground, before he continued his one-sided battle. Kisk then used his angel ethereal sword, before he performed an upper slash 1 and 2. Kisk then did his rapid slash attack, causing more of Zenobia's blood to fly, as the brood couldn't help but feel appalled that Kisk wasn't even holding back. But Rhea saw it Kisk was holding back, showing the difference in power between the two. Kisk then used his rising star attack before he threw Zenobia to the ground hard. Have you given up yet, Zenobia? Because it would be in your best interest to surrender while you still can. Kisk said as he was basically warning her to stop before he shows her why. Damn you, I won't surrender to the likes of you. Zenobia roared out before she charged at Kisk intent on taking him down. And asked, foolishness as always. Kisk said with his eyes closed before he did performed his finishing attack. Perfect judgment cut. Kisk said coldly before he used it. Zenobia didn't even see it coming as all she felt was the first judgment cut before a million more cuts appeared when she was sent airborne as her eyes were wide and wide as she didn't see it coming. When Zenobia landed she tried to move but her body would not respond. Kisk elegantly sheathed Yamato in a form on his back as he had swung it first to free it of any blood. Kisk then elegantly slicked his hair back once more as it had become more like Issei's once more during the fight as he glared down upon Zenobia. Foolishness, Zenobia, foolishness. He said as he glared down upon Zenobia. Might controls everything and without strength you cannot protect anything. Let alone yourself. Kisk called out before he walked past Zenobia, not even giving her the honorable form of defeat because for Kisk this battle had no honor. For Kisk this wasn't an honorable battle, this was just a child swinging a sword, saying she was a warrior. Those who don't know true conflict, true battle don't deserve an honorable defeat, they deserve a defeat by a reality check. How did I lose? How did you beat me? Zenobia struggled to get out as Kisk stopped and chuckled. You never stood a chance. Kisk said coldly as Zenobia laid there beaten as she dropped her sword. I will also be taking this from you now. Kisk said as he picked up Zenobia's sword of destruction, making her go wide-eyed as the sword did nothing to Kisk. In fact, it almost resonated to him like its true self was calling out to Kisk. Kisk saw this and simply put the sword on his back. No, Zenobia cried out, but it was labored as Kisk walked away. Praise you God priest, for perhaps he saw it fit for me to spare you. Kisk said as if taunting Zenobia. Kisk then drew Yamato and slashed through reality itself, creating a gateway. Next time you want to fight me, Zenobia, be prepared for a fight to the death. Kisk said before he left, taking the sword of destruction with him. Irina saw this and was wide-eyed as she saw this. Zenobia. Irina called as she ran over to Zenobia, disregarding her fight with Issei to check on her friend. Shit, she's hurt bad. Irina said as this was a risky move by her, but a greater vitality star was Zenobia's best option. Here. Issei called, throwing said star to Irina. Use that to heal your friend. Issei called as Irina nodded before she crushed the star and let the dust of it fall over Irina, healing her injuries. Let me help. Asia called, adding her twilight healing to the mix. Fibble looked to where Kisk had left to as he saw Kisk had taken Zenobia's Excalibur. But the sword had practically resonated to Kisk as if the sword's true self was calling out to him through its counterfeits. We know who was behind the sword's theft. As part of our lost, we give you control of this problem. He is the leader of the Grigori, Kakabiel. Irina said as Asia healed Zenobia. So leader class, huh? Good, because me and him have a long overdue score to settle. Issei said as he knew that fallen angel personally. Issei's mind flashed images of the day Eva died as she was surrounded by strays, outnumbered and overpowered, while her saints could do nothing as they could not arrive in time after getting him and Kisk to safety. He saw the black-winged angel as he ripped out Eva's beating heart as she died there. He laughed but then roared in anger that he didn't find what he was looking for. Luckily the peerage of Sparda and the saints of Eva arrived just in time and got the strays out. Issei then saw himself at age 5, holding his mother's corpse bridal style with unbridled rage in his eyes and drag in his first stage of the double critical gear. Issei was brought back to this moment as he was unconsciously fingering his Nephilim amulet. Be careful, Issei, right now you're our best shot at finding them. Irina said as she stood up and put something in his hand. Issei looked and smirked as he saw it was the real Excalibur mimic that Irina kept with her to keep the Vatican thinking she was with them. Basically Irina gave Issei a tracker to find the actual Caliburn. Scene break that gates of hell. Insert Bayonetta Ost gates of hell. Issei and his brood with Rhea's peerage were at Roden's bar as he looked over the Excalibur fragment Issei was given. Deep, your brother had the right idea. Roden said as Kiba sat next to Issei. These bad boy is sending out a signal to its true self, and now that it's in your hand, the closest blood relative to its original wielder Eva, it's calling to you two to find it. Rodin explained as he looked at the Excalibur mimic. But it resonated in Kisk's hand, but not Issei's. Why? Kiba asked as Rodin smirked. When Sparda and Eva died, they didn't just divide the inheritance between their kids. In fact, they also decided their weapons between them. If I had to guess, Kisk was made Eva's heir to one day wield her sword Excalibur, so by that logic, Issei was made Sparda's heir to wield the sword that carried his name. Rodin explained as Issei was impressed. So her parents weren't playing favorites. It's funny though, Kisk wanted dad's power, but instead he will be getting mom's power. Issei said as Rodin smirked. I can rig up a little something to help tracking it better, now that I got the wavelength to follow. Finding the real deal should be a walk in the park. Rodin said as he smirked. By the way, Irina has taken her job seriously and spent all hers and Zenovia's money on a shitty painting you asked me to plant. Right now it's a two-way communication between you and her, so relaying information shouldn't be hard. But right now the two are sleeping upstairs. Irina paid up front of course, and doubled to ask me to lie to Zenovia that you paid for their living arrangements. Rodin said as Issei nodded. Thanks Rodin. Issei said as he then got up. Okay then Kiba, all contracts are currently on hold for maintenance. Right now our main objective is to find Caliburn and get rid of the knockoffs. Once we do. Issei said as he was ready to hunt. Sorry, but Kiba began as he got up. I got to do this on my own. Kiba said before he left his Issei's side. Riaz. Issei began as Riaz looked. Do you know the pawn Sona has, the one with the sacred gear? Issei asked as Riaz looked. Yeah. Riaz said as she was confused. Why? Riaz asked as Issei looked. I need to borrow him and Kaneko. Issei said as Kaneko glared. No mega pervert. Kaneko said as Issei smirked. Oh well, I guess Kuroko wouldn't mind helping me if Kisk approves it. Issei said as Kaneko glared. What do I need to do? Kaneko asked as she looked. Yumi, Asia, Aika, and Sona's pawn who I forgot the name of will discuss this tomorrow. Issei said as no doubt Saji will be ticked. But Saji sneezed as he felt like he was just drafted into some crazy shit. Back at the bar. Don't worry though, I'll have the tracker done by morning. I also might have a sword lying around that Zenovia can use from now on, just need to find it first. Rodin said as Issei nodded. Okay then, let's head out and start this tomorrow morning. Right now we can't plan here in case Zenovia wakes up. Issei said as everyone agreed to that. Oh, this is going to be really fun. Aika called as Issei looked to Rodin. Hey Rodin, if Irina needs anything make sure she contacts me. Issei said. Rodin nodded. Nodded. Rodin said as that was agreeable. Well, once this fiasco with Caliburn and the knockoff Excaliburs is over, the whole gang will be back together. Murayama said as Kata smiled. Yeah, I wonder what new tricks Irina senpai has up her sleeve. Kata said as Ria sighed. Oh, by the way, Issei, Sona's pawn is named Saji. Ria said as Issei simply waved to her and left the bar. And Ost seen break Kisk and his brood, so that's the counterfeit. Arthur said as he and LaFay looked it over as Kat was bandaged up. Can I keep it? Kat asked as she looked at it. No. Kisk said to Kat as he looked it over. Anyway Kisk, I can say without a doubt this sword will lead you straight to Caliburn if you're within close enough proximity, and since it's in Kuo town, we'll have to play a complex game of hot and cold. LaFay said as Calwarner looked. Why not ask Rodin to make a tracker for us? No doubt your twin is doing that right now. Calwarner said as she had her legs crossed in a feminine manner. Really suggesting work with Rodin of all people. Millet yelled at her friend as Raynor sighed. It would be a smart move, and since Rodin never takes sides, he's basically neutral in all of this. Raynor said as Donasik agreed. Yes, that much is true, but we cannot just walk up to him without proper payment and compensation. Donasik said as Kisk sighed. No, this will be my quest alone. Kisk said as he stood up. Wait, allow us to help you Kisk. Due to my Excalibur command, I can help track down your mother's sword. Arthur said as LaFay looked. Yeah, me and Arthur owe you that much after what our ancestor did with your mother's sword. LaFay said as Kisk sighed. Follow me if you must, I shall not stop you. Kisk said as Arthur and LaFay nodded. If you can get us the parts though, we can rig the tracer to track down Caliburn wherever it's hiding. LaFay said as Kisk sighed. Well, seems we're all in this then, huh? Biku said as he smiled. A race for the sword, I'm sure Shirin would just love that. Kuroko said with a grin as she then smiled sensually at Kisk. But I suppose she would also love to be an aunt to your child as well, Kisk. Kuroko said as Kisk ignored Kuroko's advances of affection. But Issei looked outside his window wondering if his mother was watching somehow. I will find your sword, Mom. Issei said as he looked. With Kisk, and when I locate your sword, Mother. Kisk said as a silent prayer. Issei, I will be this world's protector. Issei said as he looked to the sky. Kisk, I will be this world's ruler. Kisk said as clearly the twins were more different than anyone could think possible. End of the here. So that's it for today's video, guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends.